if you want to grow and scale your consulting business, you're almost certainly going to need to have a high-performing team that is part of that. So in this video, I'm going to break down what do you need to look at, what do you need to focus on to manage and have a high-performing consulting team. First of all, I want to thank all of you for your comments in previous videos and for the request. This is a topic I know many of you were interested in learning more about. So here's a video for you. I'm going to get into it. The first thing that you want to pay attention to if you want to create a high-performing consulting team is to ensure that you as the consulting business owner or you as the leader has done a really good job of communicating, conveying, and painting the picture of what is the vision of success, right? What does the future look like? And the clearer that you are on painting that picture, the more that your team will rally around you, the more that they will be excited about what you all are working towards. If you don't have this, what you'll find is that people on your team are kind of always thinking about other opportunities. They're not necessarily focused. They're not, all moving in the same direction. And one of the greatest powers that you can have as a consulting business owner when you're building a team is to make sure that everybody is aligned, that everyone's working towards achieving the same goal, right? There's power in that. If everyone is working independently and if they all have different ideas and if they're not all aligned, if they're not clear on really what the destination is, then you're going to lose a lot of potential momentum and you're going to find that you're not going to gain that level of traction. You're not going to be able to benefit from the compounding that happens when everybody in your team is aligned, working towards that goal. So number one, get really clear about what does the future look like? What are you working towards, right? And that will help you to also plan for what adjustments or shifts, optimizations do you need to make, or maybe even investments that you need to make in your consulting business to reach that next level of success and growth that you and your team are excited about. And I'll say one more thing about this because it's an important distinction, is that this vision of success is not something that you as a leader just create and say to your team, hey, here's where we're going. Generally, at least in my experience, is it's much better for you to kind of draft that yourself, or if you have a co-founder. So in my case, at Consulting Success, my cousin Sam is co-founder. And so we talk about this together. Then we bring in our team and we have a conversation about, what we've kind of painted, what we're thinking about, and we're open to conversations because we want everybody to be bought in to have, again, alignment around that vision of success. It's not something that we want to say, hey, here's where we're going, take it or leave it. We really want to have an open conversation. And that's partly just because of the culture that we always value and we want to have as part of Consulting Success. All right, so that's number one. Number two, have clear expectations and accountability. One of the most common reasons why people hire and then find out that they're disappointed or that they need to hire and then let that person go or the person doesn't even stay is because they didn't set clear expectations early on. The clearer that you can be about what you expect, again, what success looks like in that specific role. So this would be different for each person, but talking about communication frequency, talking about what kind of outcomes or results or product, essentially what is the outcome or the output that you are expecting from somebody? How do you expect them to behave? How do you expect them to communicate? How do you expect them to operate? What results do you expect them to achieve within what timeline and time frame? All these things are incredibly important. And so if you're not clear about what the goals look like, if you're not clear about what you expect, it's very hard for the people on your team to live up to that because they're not sure what you expect. And in my experience, the more direct that you are, and direct does not mean rude, right? But the more direct that you are about what in your mind works and doesn't work. As an example, if you find that, you have a certain level of expectation around communications, and let's just make this very specific, that when you send an email to somebody on your team, you expect that they're going to get back to you within, 1 hour, let's say. If you have that expectation, but you don't verbalize, you don't communicate that expectation, and then you find that, people on your team are not responding, maybe they're responding within 3, 4, or 5 hours, or even the next day, and that really makes you upset. You might start thinking that, your team is not effective, and you might start treating your team differently because of that. But the problem with that is that if you haven't communicated that expectation to your team, then they don't know that that's what you're expecting. So it's on you as the owner and leader to communicate those expectations of what you want your team to create, how you want to operate. And it also gives your team an opportunity to have a conversation with you to say, hey, you know what, that's not realistic because. And so that gives you more context and typically creates a lot less stress because you know what to expect and your team knows what to expect. So clear expectations and accountability, right? You want to be very clear with your team. You want to set metrics and expectations around what targets are, what you want to see, when you want to see it by. And that'll also help you to track the performance of that team member. If you've set expectations, if you've set targets and you've communicated that to your team, you've had a conversation, and let's say one person on your team is not reaching those targets, they're nowhere close, and it's not just one time you talk to them and it's again not happening and again not happening, well, that is a cause for concern, right? That now shows you and helps you to see that there's a problem and you can now try and deal with it. Dealing with it might be that that team member needs additional support. It might mean they need additional education. It might mean that they're not the right person and they actually should not be in your company. And so there's somewhere else where they will thrive, but they're not thriving in your culture or your environment, or they're not the right person for that job. And that's all part of building a team, right? There's no company in the world that keeps every single person that they bring on. In fact, those that are typically most successful are very good at figuring out who's a good fit and who's not a good fit very quickly. And if somebody's not a good fit, right, wish them the best, support them in their departure, and they will thrive somewhere else. But your job is to bring on people who, again, where you set expectations and set targets, that they are achieving that consistently, right? That is one of the secrets to growth, is having the right people in the right seats where everybody is working really well together. So that's number two. Number three, and I touched on this for just a moment ago, but it's the idea of continuous learning and development. If you want your team to develop, then you should, as the leader, support them in growing. You know, some people that you bring on will just have that initiative themselves. They're going to be investing on their own dime, right, into different programs or conferences, events, courses. So that's fantastic, but that's not the expectation that I believe that you should have. I think that's great to try and find those people, but you should always look at how can you support your team members to get to that next level. And so again, that might be that you enroll them in a course. It might be that you pay for some coaching for them. It might be that you invest in some technology. But what we've done at Consulting Success is we consistently make investments into our team members. I have open conversations with our team about, I want you to think about right now, if you had, a budget of X, what might you do to improve your work, what you're creating, the value that you're creating to make you more efficient or more effective in your job. By having that conversation with your team, they now start to see that there's possibility, right? Before, they may have not been thinking about what they could do to level up. But when you have that conversation with them and let them know that, yeah, you are willing to invest in them to do, and it's not that they're doing a bad job, but just invest, you're giving them the potential to become even more successful. And it's like when, you're thinking about buying let's say a car, and maybe you don't see the car that you're thinking about buying in this exact same color or model very often. But as soon as you buy your car, you start seeing the exact same color and model all around because you're now looking for it, right? You're just much more kind of proactive and intentional. Well, it's the same thing with your team. When you arm them with that potential and that ability, they're now going to go off and think about that, right? You've planted the seeds. And when everybody on your team is thinking that way about what can we do to grow, what can we do to improve, right? Knowing that you have their back, that you're there to support them and invest in them, that's where you'll really start to see improvements in the performance of your team. All right, next, let's talk about culture. If you have a culture inside your business where you are against risk taking, where you are not giving people the freedom to try things, it's very hard for your team, or will be very hard for your team, to perform at higher levels. The most successful cultures that I've studied, the most successful companies and organizations that I've studied or that I've worked with over the years, have this understanding that it's okay to take risks. It's okay to make mistakes. You can't make the same mistake twice, right? Or ideally you're not. And every time that you make a mistake, every time that you try something that doesn't work out, that's a learning experience. And if you accumulate, right, collect all those different learning experiences, you become better and you become stronger, because each step where maybe you did not see the result that you want, you've now been able to eliminate something that doesn't work, which means you're getting closer to finding what does work. But having that culture where you talk to your team about, hey, I'm okay with you taking some risks. Here's where we can take risks. Here's where we can't take risks, right? There's maybe some areas in the business where you should definitely not be taking risks, not in your bookkeeping, right? Not in your accounting, not in your taxes, right? And again, this is not financial or legal advice, but generally those are the kinds of things, right? Legal, you should not be taking risks. But there's other areas where maybe in your marketing, maybe in your business development, maybe in trying new price points or trying, new offers, right? You can take risks in some of these areas and see what happens. And very often, right, you'll not get the result that you want. But if you think about sports, right, take baseball as an example. If you're hitting about, 30% of the time, meaning out of 10 at bats, right, 3 times or more, you're hitting the ball, that's considered very good. That means 7 out of 10 times you're striking out, right? Or you're not reaching first base, second base, third base, or hitting a home run, right? So you might look at that and go, well, that's not that successful. Again, when you look at how success works in most of these industries, whether it's baseball, whether it's venture capital, right? A lot of venture capitalists are happy if 10 or 15% of their investments are positive, right? So the key thing is that you want to minimize your downside, but create opportunity for significant upside. So that's about culture, is creating that kind of culture where you can have constructive dialogue, where you can make it a safe space for your team to experiment, but you've also set very clear expectations about where they can take risks and where they shouldn't. And hopefully you've also, or you will from now going forward, have the conversation around how you want them to learn from the risks that they take or from the experiments that they conduct, right? That should be kind of embedded and infused inside your whole culture. Next, let's talk about another area here that is going to be critical for you to reach higher levels inside of your business. And that is that you always want to be thinking about how do you up level your team. If you are the person inside of your business that has the most experience, if you are the person that has built, the business to where it's at today, and there's nobody around you that has been to that next level, then it's gonna be very challenging for you to get to that next level because you don't know exactly what it looks like. You don't know exactly what you need to do to get there. So how do you work around that? Well, two ways. Either one, you go out and you hire people that are more senior or have built a business to those bigger, higher levels. And again, this is relevant across all different kind of functions and roles in your business. So if you want to get much better at project management, but that's not your background, right? Or maybe you've done project management, but you've done project management around projects that are typically $1 million, but now you're venturing into bigger markets or working with larger clients, and now you're doing $10 million or $100 million projects in terms of project, size or value, and you don't have experience managing that. Well, bringing somebody on that has that experience would be very valuable for you. So you either bring in the people that have that higher level expertise and experience, or the second thing that you can do, the alternative, is to surround yourself with people that you can learn from, that can teach you and teach your team. So that might be a coach, that might be a mentor, that might be some kind of executive education that you do, but investing in yourself and investing in your people to learn the skills, to up level the skills, right, that you and your team have is the alternative, and that can also work really well. But one of those two really needs to be present if you want to have a high performing team. Recognition and motivation. If you want to have a high performing team, you need to make sure that you're motivating. You need to make sure that you are also rewarding your team members. And that can come in many different shapes and sizes. It can be as simple as having a one-to-one conversation with a key team member and letting them know, hey, great job doing X. I really liked how you brought the energy, how you brought the commitment, how you followed through, whatever it is that they did. You need to let them know that they did a great job. Why? Because human nature, right? We all get that warm feeling inside when somebody is praising us, when somebody is kind of rewarding, or I should say recognizing us for what we've done. And so if you're not recognizing your people right now, you're doing not only them a disservice, but you're doing your business and yourself a disservice, because they're not going to feel that they are being recognized. They're not going to feel like they're being appreciated. I'm a big believer that in the culture of your company, I certainly try and do this as best as I can, and I recognize I have room to improve, but letting my team know, hey, great job. It also means when my team is maybe not doing certain things or they're not living up to the expectations, I'm also going to let them know, and I'll do it in a polite and respectful way, but I'm going to remind them of what we've committed to, what we're working towards, why it's important, and that usually fixes any issues. But recognize your team, right? Appreciate them. And then the other thing in terms of rewarding them is it might be financial rewards. So maybe you're looking at doing some kind of a profit share, maybe you're looking at doing some kind of equity, maybe you're looking at doing some kind of bonuses, right? Or a mixture of those things. Maybe it's some other way of rewarding them, but it's not financial, but it's, hey, take a day off, or hey, I'm going to send you to this event, or I'm going to pay for you to go there. Many different ways to recognize your people, but the more that you recognize, the more again that you appreciate them and reward them, the more that reinforces that they should do more of what they've been doing. And as they do more of what's working, that will create better results for them in their role and for you and your company and your clients. So recognition, motivation, having those conversations, bringing in rewards is really, really powerful. Next is work-life balance and well-being. And I think this is incredibly important. It's why I wanted to make a note about this. You don't often hear people kind of talking about this when you think about a high-performing team. But think for a moment about the time or a time where you've been distracted because there's been something else on your mind. Maybe you had a fight with your spouse. Maybe, you said something to one of your kids that you regretted later on. Maybe you did something that you wish that you wouldn't have done in whatever aspect of life that might be. If something is weighing on your mind, right, it's hard for you to perform effectively in your job, right, in your role in business. And so it's the same thing for your team members. If their well-being, their mental well-being, their physical well-being, their health, if something is off, it's hard for them to perform in an optimal way. And so the more that you can invest in your team, whether it's just through conversations or creating the right balance, setting the right tone, the right culture, how you structure work, not overloading them with too many things that are going to really stress them out and overwhelm them, right? Finding that balance of how do you create the environment that your team really enjoys. They feel like they have freedom, they have flexibility, they're still being challenged to do great work, right? They're still being challenged to raise the bar, right? That fine balance is something that you really want to pay attention to, because that, in my experience, is the key, right? If people are being pushed too much and not recognized, and that's what can lead to burnout. That's what can lead to people feeling overwhelmed, and they start then thinking about making changes and maybe not being a part of the environment that you've created because they feel it's too much. At the same time, if you're not pushing your team enough, enough, they can feel like they're not really growing. And this is not only about financial growth, it's also about them developing as a person. And so that fine balance of making sure that people are being motivated, they're being challenged, they have a healthy environment in their workplace, they're being able to live a healthy life, right? That balance, when you strike that right, people don't want to leave because they're being recognized, they're doing great work, they're being challenged, they're learning new things, but they're doing it in an environment that doesn't feel like it's overwhelming at all times. It doesn't mean that it may not be at some times, but not all the time. All right, and then the final one here that I just really want to drive home because it's incredibly important. I've never found a high-performing team in all the studies that I've done, in all the clients that I've worked with over the years in a consulting firm, but even other businesses, and that is having data-driven performance insights. A high-performing team, just by nature, can only perform at a high level if they know what they're working towards, right? If you think about this from a sports perspective, again, this is probably because sports is such a big part of my life when I was younger, played all different kinds of sports, but you would have, for example, if you're running, right, there's a stopwatch, right? You're tracking your time. Regardless of what exercise you are doing, right, there's ways of, and you typically had a coach who's on your side or somebody supporting you that would tell you if you're doing it well or if there's area for improvement. But if you don't know or you don't have somebody that can actually show you and point out for you what better looks like, then you're almost certainly not going to be operating optimally, right? And you're also likely going to be leaving a lot of money and opportunity on the table. So this is really important that you have, again, these kind of KPIs, these key performance indicators, or you have OKRs in place, right? Whatever methodology or approach that you're using, you want to have clear targets to know what does success look like? What are we actually working towards? And this should apply in all the different roles and kind of functions or departments inside of your business. And then you have to have people that are in charge of each of those. So when everyone knows what they should be working towards, they know what success looks like, then they can figure out and think about how do they actually make sure they're reaching that level of success, right? If you want to level up your team to have them really perform at high levels, you need to define what does high level results and success and outcomes look like. And then the team can be working towards that. And once they know that and they start to achieve that, then you can look at and explore with the team, well, how do we raise the bar? How do we go from, let's say, 15 leads per month to 20 leads per month, right? What do we need to do to go from 3 proposals per month to 5 proposals per month, right? And that creates conversations. But if you don't have those targets, if you haven't set the bar of what success looks like and what high performance looks like, it's very hard to have your team operate and deliver at that level. All right, so if you want more videos like this, or you have a topic that you're interested in me creating a video on, this is where this video came from. So thank you guys all for giving that feedback. Just put the comment below this video and let me know. And likewise, if you're a consulting business owner and you're interested in learning how to scale and grow your business to make it more valuable, to put better systems in place, to really shift away from being and feeling like an employee in your business, to having a business that is growing and you're viewing it and you have a strategic plan in place and you know that you're going down the right path, if all of that is of interest to you, then click the link below this video or reach out by going to consultingsuccess.com, click on coaching, learn more about our Clarity Coaching program. This is where we've worked with over 1,000 consulting business owners, helping them to add 6 and even 7 figures to their annual revenues. But more importantly, really helping them to build a business that they feel proud about, that creates a lot more freedom and flexibility and success, a business that they feel that they are being able to, operate as an owner, a true owner, and not just an employee inside of their business. If you're interested in that, again, go to consultingsuccess.com, click on coaching, schedule a call with us, and we'll talk with you about your specific situation. We'll look at what you can do to go from where you are to where you want to be. We'll point out the things that you should be paying attention to and help you to get a plan in place and look at how we can support you to implement that plan.